Hello. How do I express what the past week has been like? When I woke up on Saturday, the 7th of October, just before 6:30, my taste has changed. I heard the news of the horrific attack on Israel. As I read the news, I knew that this is a pivotal moment for humanity, and my heart has been breaking open ever since. When Wayne died, my grief, sorrow, devastation was personal. It was and still is mine alone. A sacred journey of deepening into love and expanding my heart, mind, body, and soul into another dimension. Another way of being present in my life and choosing how to authentically and consciously walk the journey of the remainder of my life. When Wayne died, my senses changed. I see differently, I hear differently, I feel differently, the smells are different, and most profoundly, my taste changed. Today I grieve with Israel and collectively. I'm a new grandmother. My daughter, her partner, and grandson live in Tel Aviv, so this feels really personal. As he was called up to the army and she was alone with her baby, I felt her vulnerability and her inner fear within my body. It was my internalized fear for their safety. What shocked me and shook me to another place in my heart is the levels of heartbreaking suffering, violence, abuse, and divisive narrative, as well as the celebration of suffering by people who don't know because of trauma, toxic hate, a conditional belief of dehumanizing and cutting off feelings, dismantling identity. Remember in the Holocaust, where people were tattooed with a number and a letter? Easier not to face the human if they're just a number. And then this week, I've also looked at my own Judaism. Where do I stand as a Jewish woman whose ancestors left Latvia in the early 19th century because of the pogroms, leaving with very few belongings and landing up in Pilgrim's Rest in South Africa? Another life, another place, another time. I grew up in a non-religious Jewish home and had no Jewish education or understanding of my lineage. When my parents divorced at the age of 11, I was moved from then was the only Jew or one of very few. I was shamed and I'd felt isolated and uncomfortable for much of the time. And yet I was called out to speak up about racism and anti-Semitism. The racism was about living during apartheid and being given privilege just because of the color of my skin. And the anti-Semitism was insidious in how people spoke around me. This has never changed. I've always held this very close to my heart. And I've also carried a deep confusion within me as a Jew about Israel and Palestine. There is nothing within me that can ignore suffering. It breaks my heart over and over and over again. This week, I am shattered. I'm heartbroken and I'm overwhelmed by the devastation, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. And I see the nerve and I feel the nervous system of the world has been rocked and is so tightly wound in pain and in grief and in shock. I felt called to write this today on the 13th of October after a week of war and the exposure of anti-Semitism in its ugliest form. I'm a Jewish mother, daughter, sister, aunt, friend, woman. I'm loving, kind, empathetic, and compassionate. And I walk my path with an open heart. this week when I decided to go off social media, it's because I need to pull back so that I can show up from a full cup of higher connection and grounded wisdom. But I did need to say something before I do that. I am proud to be a Jew. I'm proud of my ancestors and the path they have walked, and honor their suffering and challenges. I'm proud of who I am, especially because of my capacity to love all of life, all people, sentient beings, Mother Earth, my elemental mothers, and the radiant sun. I don't stand for violence and hatred, and I certainly don't stand for terror and destruction. I stand for unity, I stand for peace, and I stand for love.